Ruben van den Bos, your final rider on the front row. Elite men's race here in the World Cyclocross Championships in the home country of this man, the former three-time world champion. Today, will he go for the shock and awe, just go from the gun and see if anyone can stay with him? As Felipe Orts just moves up, Nievenhuis is right there.
It looked like Lars van der Haar slipped a pedal and fell backwards. He's just trying to retrieve the situation right now on the right hand of the screens there, but definitely had a problem getting away from the line.
Just how steep these bridges are, and Jeremy, straight away you can see stretching this one out is Mathieu van der Poel, Niels van der Putte and Nievenhuis going with him. He is going for textbook Van der Poel shock and awe.
That's exactly right. Van der Poel is not playing games right now. When you see that left elbow just flying like a big flapper out in the wind, you know that he's throwing down some serious watts. Right now, Van der Poel out for blood this morning.
He certainly is. What a start. Van der Poel, Van der Putte, Nievenhuis, Van den Bos, Timon Rook, Isabet. The Belgians here, Helen, already are going to have to fight with this one to get back. Sweek is really far back, as is Ronhaar.
Yeah, the Dutch team is so strong this year, and they're going to try and take this on. They're going to help Van der Poel as much as humanly possible. Not that he really needs that much help, but like you can see now, there's plenty of different lines on this course, and so when they're coming into these sections, it's tough to actually ride for another rider.
Niels van der Putte at the moment the only rider able to go with him. That was the question coming in to today's elite men's race was how would Van der Poel approach this one, and he's kind of taking a leaf out of the book of some of the other championship rides so far this weekend. And in a world championship, it's the best situations to get yourself out of that washing machine, isn't it, that can happen when everyone's bunched up together.
Especially in these conditions, you can get really caught up behind and lose 10-15 seconds on one of these pinch points, and Van der Poel just taking all kind of luck and chance out of it. One rider with another terrible start is Cam Mason, unfortunately, way back in the pack. He was hoping for a lot more today, everything towards Worlds, he said in an interview, but right now he's got off to a really bad start.
And it's not uncommon to see him have not a great start in these races, but when it comes to the World Championships, like we've seen in a lot of other races over the weekend, it's so important to get away at the front. And you're not doing this for the crowds anymore. You're doing this for yourself to win that jersey. And so you're not going to wait around for other people to make the race interesting, like I'm sure Van der Poel has done at some points in his career, but right now he just wants to destroy this field and take a huge gap.
And Jeremy, we've seen a different approach from Van der Poel a lot of the time this season. He's, as he's sort of got older and matured, he's sat back a little bit this year and just and tactically just changed things up. But that's not what he's doing today.
No, Van der Poel, I think he knows his place right now. I think he knows the form that he has. He already said in that right in the pre-race before we got into this, we did a nice feature on it that you can hear all the times where he's saying he's just really enjoying this moment in his career right now as we're having big problems here for Timon Rook.
Yeah, what a shame for Timon Rook. He's been on great form as of late as a Swiss man, and a big roar of frustration, as you can imagine. For the Swiss man, it's now about just shoulder that bike, run to the pits, but we are starting to get a bit of a lead group here as Joris Nievenhuis makes it up towards teammate Mathieu van der Poel. Van der Putte now has got to ride the race of his life in this one. Toon van den Bos is up there. Eli Isabet is at 7 seconds in 5th. Clement Venturini in 6th. Ryan Camp 7th. Laurent Sweek. Felipe Orts in the top 10. The man from Spain, Kevin Kuhn, in 10th position.
This is a good race for Orts as well. He's good in the muddy conditions, he's good in the tough conditions, and so he's had a fantastic season this year, and for him to get well into that top 10, maybe even top 5 would be a fantastic result for him. But at the front of this race, it is so fast.
Michael van Turenap down in 20th position, Lars van der Haar in 17th, Pim Ronhaar in 13th. We're all within this big group here ominously, though, at the head of the race, and it is just the silky smooth skills of the 5-times world champion. As we said at the top of our program, 7 men's titles is the record. Only Mariana Vos has more, and 8. Eric de Vlaming, the men's record holder, with 7 titles. Van der Poel stretching out the gap here on lap 1 over Joris Nieuwenhuis. There's Zdenek Štibar going through the local riders, the home riders. There's Michael Van Turnhout. Dreadful start from Van Turnhout here. Such a shame, because on this course, on paper, as we said, he won his under-23 championship title here, and he's been one of the only riders recently that's been able to go with Van der Poel.
Yeah, definitely something happened on the rider's right-hand side of the grid. Van der Haar, Van Turnhout, Cam Mason was directly behind those on the grid. Definitely something happened. We didn't quite see it because we cut to the kind of see the back of the grid as they left things, but yeah, all 3 of those riders with much worse starts than they'd have been hoping for. Van der Poel choosing to remount as soon as possible after those planks. No one yet to ride them. Keep your eyes peeled for anyone in the background giving it a go.
Van der Putte would be the man that would have a go.
That looked like he did have a bit of a go, and he got over the first one, but was not able to get over the second one. And yeah, I mean, this answers our question from before. In pre-ride, it was possible, but in the race, right now, it's not possible. Maybe if Van der Poel gets a huge lead, then he'll give it a go, but I don't think that we'll see very many people doing that today.
And Ian, you were saying earlier, because you're our resident statistician here this weekend, as we saw in our graphics as well, Van der Poel is unbeaten on this course.
I was desperately trying to find a chink in his armour to give everyone hope of a good race today to watch, but literally every time he's come to the board, he's put his arms in the air and won the bike race. So just phenomenal. A European Championship, a World Championship, and multiple World Cups here. It's just unbelievable. Right now, Nieuwenhuis riding a good race. Just looks like he's kind of riding his own tempo, not being drawn into following Van der Poel at this point and going into the red too much and kind of sacrificing the rest of the race. So looking good from Nieuwenhuis, and then everyone else just scrapping and fighting for positions and desperately trying to come through.
And the pressure on Belgium here in this one now, with Van der Putte still in that bronze medal position. But Clément Venturini of France, this is a Venturini, we know what a powerhouse the Frenchman is, and Tabor in these sort of conditions. Venturini's another rider who's had forward momentum in the last few weeks. Yeah,
I actually commentated on the French National Championships, and he was so good, and he was so smart, and like today, I mean, that was a hilly course as well, actually, but like today, on this kind of conditions, you can use power. There's not as much crazy Belgian-style techniques. There's no sand, you know, things like that the Belgians are notoriously good at. So you could see other riders coming to the forefront of this race. And yeah, Van der Poel is not increasing that gap that much, but it's only the first lap. But for Venturini to be only 20 seconds down in third at the minute is absolutely brilliant, don't you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, right now, I think Venturini definitely has shown himself already this season. Like you said, kind of evolving all year long. He's got a lot of focus on the road, so he also, you know, he wants to do something over there. He's got ambitions, but he's always been really, really strong in the cross. We've seen him come in, obviously be up there in the front. When he's on a good bit of form, especially on a track like this that really suits his strengths, he can be dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, he was World Junior champion way back in 2011 in St. Bernard. He was 4th in these World Championships in 2015 as well. And for Venturini, he was one of those riders who kind of was tempted away and has come home to cyclocross, and you can see how much again he's improved, like Joris Nieuwenhuis over the last 2 seasons. And Venturini will mix it up between, you know, road and cyclocross as well, but just this season, the back end, it's the technique is there, and he's knocking on the door here of taking a medal for France. And we've said it throughout these championships that the French, the art of peaking for the right day is a French skill, as Mathieu Van der Poel will come round at the end of lap 1. What a season he is having so far, the world road race champion, looking to keep the rainbow jerseys, the double. It's his teammate, his fellow countryman behind him in Joris Nieuwenhuis, who've got to say, one of the riders of the season so far, Joris Nieuwenhuis.
Very much so. I think my favourite stat from him is he's had 5 professional cyclocross wins and 5 this season. So it just goes to show the step he has made this season. I was just keeping a really close eye on the riders coming through that rut before the final pit. So there's a couple of ruts, 2 right-handers, and I was getting reports down on the course that there's rocks appearing in the very deep ruts. We've seen punches, no spoilers, we've seen punches in previous races, particularly in those ruts. So just keeping an eye whether the bikes were stalling, hitting the rims hard, coming through those, just keeping an eye out for punches. I see Stibby coming up to the line.
Zdeněk Štýbar roared through the line by the home crowd, sitting in 22nd position at this point. This is the last dance for Zdeněk Štýbar today, and what a fitting end to an incredible career for the home rider. Let's run you through who is where. It's the Netherlands in the gold and silver medal positions.
We're watching here Mathieu van der Poel. Even he, with the skill level that he has, he's struggling as he's got really close to the barriers on the right-hand side of the screen as we watched it. And Nieuwenhuis actually had a really nice line in there, and he's just taken a couple of seconds back. But yeah, it's getting really, really rutted. And as Ian's saying, and it's not just, it's all of these places along that bottom field. It's really tricky to get a decent line at the minute.
And as you can see, the way everyone's having to kind of traverse this section of the course. Backwards and forwards across it.
Yeah, that drainage kind of ditch down the middle of it makes it very tricky. Lots of different line choices on offer for these riders, and it makes it super interesting to see which rider kind of thinks which one's best, basically. One rider moving through quite nicely, Michael van Turnhout.
You can sense the panic almost of the Belgian team here, though, can't you?
Well, absolutely. They need a medal, don't they? They, you know, they can't come away from World Championships without a medal of some colour in one race. And obviously they had the relay on the first day, but individual medals, you know, it's really important to them. Cyclocross is Belgian currently, and so instant on the inside there.
Van den Bos goes down, chains off as well, but manages, I think, as he pedalled that one back on.
Nicely done there. So Mathieu van der Poel, 8 seconds. I think that gap is growing now over Joris Nieuwenhuis. Toon van den Bos in third at 27 seconds in that group, with Clement Venturini, Michael van Turnhout, Niels van der Putten, Pim Ronhaar at 31 seconds. Elie Iserbyt we saw on the back of that group. Then as a roughly 4 seconds, 5 seconds to the next group of Lars van der Haar, Felipe Orts, Thibaut Nys, Laurent Sweeck, Mikko Boros, Jens Adams, Ryan Kamp, Vitze Meeuwsen at 45 seconds, 48 to Vissura, Kevin Kuhn in 18th, Eric Brunner of the USA in 19th, Mace Hendricks in 20th, just outside that top 20. Thomas Mean is in 22nd position. He's in that group with Zdeněk Štýbar, Cameron Mason back in 29th. Scott Funston in 30th position, Curtis White in 32nd position at this stage.
And Michael van Turnhout's up into third spot, and I really think he's on fantastic form, don't you, Jeremy?
I sure do. I was just looking really quickly to see the last time there weren't any Belgians on the podium, 1997. So that would be definitely, they're going to be looking and doing everything that they can to just make sure that that doesn't come to fruition. They want to make sure that there's a Belgian up on the podium, and if not, even trying to still take a win at this race. Anything's possible. This is the World Championships.
Nieuwenhuis remounts, so it's the Netherlands 1 and 2. 10 seconds is the gap back from Mathieu van der Poel to Joris Nieuwenhuis, then Clement Venturini within this group, Pim Ronhaar, another former world under-23 champion, with Michael van Turnhout there in the blue. This is a course he knows and loves and suits him well. Felipe Orts of Spain is having another great day out. It is a sea of blue and orange in that chasing. Oh, little stumble there from Felipe, the Spanish man, popular rider.
You have to say, this is almost one group going for third place right now, kind of everyone on the wheel ahead. And I know it's a fairly long time gap between third and probably 15th at this point, but in such tough conditions, this race is fully on for that final podium position.
Mikko Boros is the rider from Czechia, home rider in that group. Just saw Nieuwenhuis coming to a little bit of a halt, just got caught up in that rut. Ronha coming through. Von Torini constantly here, just checking to see if he can get through, get past Michael Van Turenhout. And Van der Poel into the pits for a bike change. If you're just tuning in, you're just joining us for the first time, welcome to the UCI World Cyclocross Championships. And the question at the beginning of the day, was there anyone that could challenge the supremacy of Mathieu Van der Poel? And you would say, on lap 2, not at the moment. His nearest rival is his fellow countryman and teammate Joris Nieuwenhuis. Michael Van Turenhout leading that next group at 35 seconds, but you can pretty much throw a blanket over that sort of top 15 riders at the moment. We go through the cacophony of sound up through the planks, and no one able to hop these today. Nieuwenhuis, he's still got Van der Poel. He's got Van der Poel still in his sights here, Nieuwenhuis.
10 seconds is not a lot of time on this course. If you make one mistake, you could lose 5, and then that person's right back in again. But, I mean, obviously it's Mathieu Van der Poel, and we've seen him crash at the start of a race and still win it by a minute and a half. But I honestly believe the form he came into the season on is not the form that we see of him right now, because if it was, he would have already destroyed everybody. But I'm Michael Van Toorn out there just going over the planks and then attacking again. He's renowned for doing that kind of thing, and he's just trying to get that group down again, like we're seeing now. It's a huge group, like you said, Ian.
It certainly is. I think we're not seeing that big kind of out the saddle attack from Van der Poel, just because of the conditions and the course is so hard today, where you have to be very, very calculated with your effort. 60 to 70 minutes of racing we're expecting today, and if you go over the limit, there's almost no coming back from it. I'm sure we've all been there. I'm sure you have, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, we saw that a little bit in some of the junior races where some of the riders today on this track in these conditions really went deep in the first half, and then the last lap was just impossible to put together. Big mistakes coming out, lots of just kind of, you know, bad, like drunken legs a little bit, just like all over the bike, you know, making errors in places where they shouldn't have. But now Michael Van Toornhout hitting out, trying to secure this 3rd spot.
Ron Haar giving chase here for the Netherlands, and then that gap starting to open. So I'm sure we'll get the reports afterwards, but Van Toornhout's going to rue that bad start that he had.
He is, but equally, you know, if he was there, would he still have been able to hold the wheel? We did see in Benidorm how close he was in the finish, and we know he has incredible skills. I mean, that line he just took where the back wheel slid out and it made him go straight onto the grass section, and he can accelerate again. He's really, really good in these kind of conditions and these tough courses, and he's so good at peaking for an event, which we've talked about over every championship so far, which is an art.
Nieuwenhuis, 10 seconds. He's still holding here for Joris Nieuwenhuis. This is a good ride here from the Dutchman in 2nd place.
I would say perfect conditions for Nieuwenhuis. Potentially a little bit too heavy for what Van der Poel really excels in. I mean, levels of excelling, obviously. But I'd have said if he wanted absolute perfect condition for himself, it would be a little bit quicker. But Nieuwenhuis, that kind of diesel strength, endurance that he has, perfect conditions for him today. Thibaut Nice making his way back through. He was another rider with not the greatest of starts. There's Van der Haar.
And Lars Van der Haar, Jeremy, he's won on this course as in the World Cups. It's a course that we always know that Van der Haar performs really well on.
Well, Marty, when we had him back on the podcast back in the day, I remember Van der Haar talking about kind of missing that opportunity here where he really believed that he might be able to take a title right before Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel had come into the mix. He ended up on the podium here with them in Tabor that year, and I think that he's been one of the riders that's really, that's the only thing that he's missing is that victory at the World Championships. But, man, he's won everything else besides the world title. So Van der Haar certainly one of the riders that can make it happen. One of the elder statesmen that's out here, 33 years old. He has the most experience. He may not have the most power in his legs, but he definitely is one of the most experienced riders that toes that start line today.
Mathieu van der Poel comes through the line at the end of lap 2, a 9:36 lap. 9:18, 9:36 is the lap times for Mathieu van der Poel so far. Joris Nieuwenhuis goes through the line, 12 seconds for the Dutchman. And then you've got the first Belgian, Michael Van Turenhout, with another Dutchman, Pim Ronhaar. who also excels in the really tough conditions. Van Turnhout flicks his elbow at Pim Ronhaar. Ronhaar's just having a think here, whether he can come through.
It's a really tricky situation for him, because if he goes to the front and brings them back, he's bringing them towards Joris Nieuwenhuis, his teammate in this situation. But if he waits, then Thibaut Nice and Elizabeth are going to come across to Michael Van Turnhout, and then it's 3 against 1. So he is in a tricky situation. Does he wait? Does he then attack them? Does he try and attack Van Turnhout? Or at this moment, just see what happens.
Our next group going through, Laurent Sweeck is in this chasing group here. So Sweeck not having a great day. He's in 13th position, back to our leader, Mathieu van der Poel. That tricky section.
Looked like he'd learned from the previous lap and just carried a little bit more speed out of that section. Nieuwenhuis rides that nice line that he had on the previous lap, but this time not taking back any time. In fact, loses another second to Van der Poel. So signs of a big champion is learning from previous laps. I mean, it wasn't the biggest mistake on the previous lap, but he felt that momentum kind of drop and didn't carry that speed out of that section. Small tweak with the line and flies through that section this time round.
Sorry, go on,
Depth of the ruts at the bottom of that section are insane now. When you look at how Nieuwenhuis, we're going to get to see Pim Ronhaar go through it, and you just look at how high those ruts are going up the wheels of these riders when they go to the bottom of this part. And that's so tough to ride, isn't it, Jeremy?
It is. It is very difficult to ride all these sections. You know, when you start to look at the kind of the way that the course is just dried out in these different areas where you just really got to switch up your cadence. You know, you got to be thinking on this upper half, super fast, got to hit the rut. In this lower section, right, you got to have this very low cadence, weight far back. You've got to think about kind of how you're moving the bike underneath you. There's a lot that goes into this when you're starting to think about the different conditions, not to mention these little sections up top where it's more pavement or concrete that they're switching to. So lots of, you know, multi-surface, different things going on. But you can't see it here, but just that is such thick mud that they're going through right there. It takes a lot of power to push a bike through that with a 150, 180-pound rider on it. It's a lot of effort to put out to be able to go and keep this bike momentum moving lap after lap.
And that's where we've seen Ronhaar, and we got a great shot of him there. That's where we've seen Ronhaar really, that power that he's developed this season.
That kind of torque power, that lower cadence. So on the lower part of the course, that's kind of governed to you because you need that torque to gain the grip from the rear wheel to make it up those banks. And then up the top section of the course, you really want to try and up the cadence. But given how hard it is, you end up kind of grinding away and still using that torque. And we've seen this season at Dendermonde and other heavy courses, Ronhaar's been really good on it. And for a younger rider, that bodes really well for the future in these conditions.
Ronhaar's come in with huge confidence into this season. And I think that's part of the reason. Well, in the very beginning, he had massive confidence in that in the first races, and then he had a crash. But then when he came back, you know, he really carried that with him.
Mathieu van der Poel, 14 seconds ahead of fellow countryman Joris Nieuwenhuis. Pim Ronhaar at 43 seconds with Michael Van Turnhout. Can they put 3 Dutch riders on the podium? I don't think, I'm going to check back through the stats, I don't think it has ever been done. They've done 1, 2 on many occasions. I don't think they've ever managed to close out the podium.
In the men's.
In the men's, rather. In the men's, I was about to say.
But you see the fatigue already setting in with Nieuwenhuis. Like when he got back on the bike, a slip of the pedal, that mud build up on the pedals and on the cleats, and that's just kind of a little bit of fatigue setting in already. We're not even at half distance yet.
This is the section where Michael Van Turnhout is so good, though. When we see he jumps back on, he's behind Ronhaar at that moment, but he's able to almost pedal really fast. And he's got such a high cadence, then he gets straight back to him before the top of the hill. And if he's able to keep doing that over and over and over, then potentially he could still be there at the finish with Ronhaar. And he's tactically a smart rider.
Very much so. See Nieuwenhuis off the bike again for that very deep, muddy section, but just a visual there. You can see the gaps gone out and our timing screens update. Glasses off, 17 seconds now. Another fresh bike change onto that pristine white canyon for Mathieu van der Poel. Be interested to see what he chooses to do on this corner. Gets off, runs it round. He's just kind of doing the safe option everywhere right now. If you get off, run around those heavy, deep, muddy corners, you just take any risk of stalling out of the equation.
Back into the planks for Van der Poel. Dismounts. You can see just how heavy, how tough this section of this Tabor course is today. And it's all been about this World Championship title. I mean, he's chasing that. You look at Van der Poel's career and what he's won, and that men's record of 7 World Championship wins of De Vlaeminck. As we always say, Marion and Vos has 8, but the men's title is 7. It is just there in the distance, isn't it, for Van der Poel? He still wants that sort of record in his career.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same as when you look at Mark Cavendish trying to have the record for the most number of Tour de France stage wins. And it doesn't, he would always say it doesn't really mean that much. Win is a win. You know, winning is the important part. Wearing the jersey is the important part. But then when you get that close to it, it must be something else. And this is a section again where Michael Van Toornhout is just so good at getting on uphill and accelerating away, don't you think, Jeremy?
I do, yeah, and he's absolutely flying right now. This is the part of the course where we've seen him, even when he won the World Cup here, I believe his first World Cup, he was really, really super good on this section, and he's continued to show that he really has the pedigree of such a good rider. European champion, 2 times in a row here. We've really seen him come into his own, but here on these parts of the course, this is what he excels at. These big, climby sections, tons of power output. He's great technically, all around. He's a very gifted rider, but if he's going to make a difference today over a rider like Pim Runhart, young, very, very hungry, he's going to need to really do this lap after lap and put these sections together to be able to overcome someone like Runhart for that last spot on the podium.
For Van der Poel, when we see him in this position, just going from the gun, he's one of those riders again who just looks like he's cruising. But when you're cruising at this level as well, everything, the power, the heart rate, everything is still right up there you're still red-lined in it, aren't you?
Absolutely. He's just kind of settled into his race pace right now, and he didn't panic. He wanted to establish that gap early on in the race, and then he kind of settled down to race pace, and I think that's where Nieuwenhuis held him, riding his own tempo. But right now it's just kind of, an adding up, a building up process of, linking sections together, learning lap to lap, and just beginning to eke out that kind of advantage over the course of this lap.
It's going to be a 6-lap race, as you can see. Let's run you through who is where. Mathieu van der Poel holding the gap now. 22 seconds to this man here, his fellow countryman, Joris Nieuwenhuis, who slides out on that corner. 50 seconds back to Michael Van Toornhout and Pim Runhart, who are in the battle for that bronze medal. As we said, we've never had an all-Dutch podium in the men's elite championship race. Of course, we've done it on many occasions in the elite women's championships. Michael Van Toornhout has got to keep the hopes alive here for Belgium that he can take a medal in this one. It'll be Pim Runhart there who will be the man that could potentially prevent that from happening. In 5th place at 1:05, just coming into your picture here, is Lars van der Haar. Thibaut Nace at 1:08 behind him with Ailey Isabit. Then we go 1:26 back to the Frenchman, Clement Vontarini. In 9th place for Belgium is Jens Adams. Mikkel Boros is in 10th place. Man from Czechia, Vitzimis and Felipe Orts, Niels van der Putte, Laurens Sveik, Tom van der Moss, Filippo Fontana, Joram Visura, Ryan Camp, Kevin Kuhn and Mace Hendricks is your top 10, top 20 as Van der Poel comes through at the end of his lap. Nieuwenhuis into the pits for a swift bike change. 9:18, 9:36, 9:31. There's your average speeds.
I presume that was a bike problem for Nieuwenhuis. There's no real other reason to change in that second pit. It's the faster of the pits. It's hard to get into after that muddy corner. Whether he just clipped one of those rocks in those final couple of ruts towards the finish and just felt as though it hit the rim hard, didn't want to take any chances in case that tubular had been punctured, and just gets off that bike, changes.
As we said, a lot of the ruts we heard, there's some rocks for, you know, coming to the surface and that kind of thing, and anything can happen.
And in these kind of course conditions, you are using a lower pressure because you're trying to get as much traction as possible. You want as much tread touching the ground when you're in those corners and on those banks to try and give you grip. And so you are running them at a really low pressure. And as soon as you get into those sections where there's rocks or anything like that at the bottom of a rut and you hit it hard, then it's really important that you try not to hit it too hard. But if you do, like Ian said, the pit's there. You really do not want to risk waiting for half a lap in case something happens when you can change and lose a couple of seconds, not 30.
Timon Ace goes through in 7th position, 118, and then we go back to the chasing group. Mikkel Borosh of Czechia with Vitamius and Jens Adams, Felipe Orts on the back of that group. You can see here the style of the Spanish rider, Tom van den Bos, we saw in the background, just taking a gel. Back up to our leader, and what a rider. What about it? Was an ominous thing last week, wasn't it, Jeremy, for Mathieu van der Poel to say he wanted to come into this one today with the best legs of the season.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he is. When I look at the lap times, continuing to improve. Obviously, everyone on that opening lap, scorching. 9:18 for Van der Poel, then followed that up with a 9:36, then a 9:31. So he went 5 seconds faster than his already second fastest lap time there. Neuvenhuis, as a comparison, 9:25, 9:41, now 9:49. So shedding quite a bit of time on that last lap, as Ian said, with a problem there. And then I also noticed Pim Runhar deciding, hey, I'm not coming through when Michael Van Tornhout threw his elbow out for him to come through. So lots going on in this one. I expect that Runhart has had some advice maybe from one of the people on Team Netherlands that says, hey, don't work with this guy. I don't want to see this happen. I don't want to see them up on the podium. I want to have an all-Dutch podium today.
And Runhart can just get an armchair ride here. He doesn't have to work with Michael Van Tornhout.
Yeah, he can. I mean, you're not getting a huge advantage by following the wheel. There's not a lot of there's not huge wind protection required on this kind of course. It's just brutally tough. You can learn a lot by being close to that rider. You can see where they're making mistakes and where you might be able to attack them. So we're seeing Michael Boras here come through for Czech Republic, and he's going to be getting huge support out there today.
Yeah, Boras, the Czech champion on this course a few weeks ago, 15th at Euros, but all of his best rides seem to happen here. 9th here in the World Cup last year. He was 7th in the Elite Euros here when they were held here, and 13th at Elite Worlds in 2015. So he always turns it on this course and with the support of the home crowd.
Mathieu van der Poel roared on by this huge crowd. That steely-eyed focus of Van der Poel. Remounts, and it's just, as a rider, as an athlete, I mean, you look at where Van der Poel is now and look at the season, the last year that he's had from his World Championship victory in Hoogerheide to Milan-San Remo, to Paris-Roubaix, to the World Road title as well. And the excitement around what he could do this season, given that we're seeing him at the best we've ever seen him in cyclocross.
Absolutely. And I mean, as soon as he found out that Wout and Tom weren't going to race World Championships, the discussion around the team, and from what I've heard, rumours, are that he wanted to hit the season full gas. He didn't care that he would lose a bit of form as he got towards the World Championships, because his biggest rivals of all time weren't going to be there. So we saw some incredible performances as soon as he hit the season. And I mean, watching some of the things he was capable of doing in sand this year, he's now probably the only rider in the world to ride every single sandbank in Coxside on separate occasions. But like the power, the strength, the skill is just insane what we've seen from him this season, and he's so exciting to watch. But coming into this, yeah, I would have expected a massive gap, and to me, I feel like his form isn't quite the same as when he started. I don't know what you think, Jeremy.
Well, I would say, just to add to that, I also think he's a man that knows how to use his bike. He knows how to use his equipment. He studies everything. He's so smart. I was thinking about when Ian said, like, oh, there would be some holes in this rut that's kind of developing at the finish. I guarantee you, just the way that you think of Mathieu van der Poel, he knows this. Someone told him this. He clicked and saved it in his pre-ride. He understands it. He's just, it takes more than just showing up to be able to do it. He really is in tune with his machine.